What if the USSR conquered all of the Warsaw Pact countries in 1960? The year is 1960. The Cold War has been raging for almost 2 decades. The Western powers have been steadily gaining ground in Europe with the formation of NATO and the recovery of Western Germany. But what if the Warsaw Pact had a much more aggressive start? What if the USSR used its superior military might to force the rest of Eastern Europe into submission and created a massive Slavic empire? After World War II, the USSR was exhausted and its empire was in sharp decline. With the rest of the world, it desperately clung to power, but it would not last. In our timeline, the USSR began losing ground after Stalin's death. But what if the tide had turned in 1960? What if Stalin's paranoia and warmongering had paid off? In this alternate history, Stalin managed to keep the rest of the Eastern European nations under Soviet control. With the addition of these 3 nations, the USSR's sphere of influence expanded greatly. Now, all of Eastern Europe was a part of the communist bloc. The USSR grew rapidly in this alternate timeline. By the 1970s, it controlled not only all of Eastern Europe, but also Western Germany. It seemed that the prophecy of the Germanic Slavic Brotherhood had come true. By this point, the USA realized that something had to be done. The Vietnam War was still raging, and the Soviets were on a rampage in Europe. This caused a political crisis in the USSR. Did they dare attack West Germany and risk nuclear war? They didn't. Instead, they focused their efforts on the Middle East. With the Arabs, they fought against Israel and the US and were ultimately victorious. With America distracted by the war in the Middle East, the Soviets continued to expand their empire. Poland and Czechoslovakia fell quickly, but the Americans were able to put up more of a fight in France. Still, it wasn't enough. The Soviets, with their massive army, were able to take the nation and incorporate it into the USSR. The Soviet Union had become a true superpower, controlling not only Eastern Europe, but Western Europe as well. The nation of France was the last to fall in 1983. By this point, the Soviet Union had become so powerful that the Americans didn't even bother resisting. They simply pulled out of Europe and left the continent to the Soviets. The Cold War was over. The USSR had won, but it didn't last. Internal rebellions and economic collapse brought the nation back to reality. Without the Western nations to keep it in check, the USSR had grown too powerful and was destined to fall.